Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. From this video, I will discuss about the development of the stomach. So, the stomach first appears as a fusiform dilatation of the foregut during fourth week of development. During further development, its appearance and the position changes due to different rates of growth in various regions of its wall. Actually, due to this different rates of growth in its wall, there is something called lesser curvature and also greater curvature. When we talk about the further development of the stomach, we take this as longitudinal axis, and first stomach rotates 90 degrees clockwise around this longitudinal axis. Therefore, what happens is initial left side of the stomach Initial left side of the stomach faces anteriorly and initial right side of the stomach faces posteriorly. So the vagus nerves comes like this. This is the left vagus nerve. This is the right vagus nerve. Due to this rotation, what happens is the left vagus nerve now innervates the anterior wall of the stomach. Similarly, the right vagus nerve now innervates the posterior wall of the stomach. Actually, during this rotation, the original posterior wall of the stomach grows faster than the anterior portion. Therefore, what happens is the greater curvature develops and lesser curvature develops. As the initial posterior wall grows faster, it becomes now greater curvature. Here you can see the cephalic end and the caudal end of the stomach initially lies in the midline. But during further developments, you can see it is also aligned. During the further growth, stomach rotates around an antero-posterior axis as well. First, it rotates around longitudinal axis clockwise. Now, it rotates around antero-posterior axis also. Therefore, what happens is the caudal end or the pylorus moves to right and little bit upwards, and the cephalic or the caudal portion moves to slightly left and slightly downwards. And therefore, you can see the final position of the stomach here. So that is the development of the stomach. But you have to know what is the development of the ligaments or the peritoneal foldings, that those are called as mesenteries, attached to this stomach, how they are developed. From this diagram, you can see the stomach and its peritoneal attachments. Because of this, stomach is attached to the dorsal mesogastrium, the dorsal body wall by dorsal mesogastrium, and it is also attached to the ventral body wall by ventral mesogastrium. Once it rotates, what happens is there is formation of a space behind the stomach. It is called as omental bursa. This omental bursa is also called as the lesser peritoneal sac. Not only that, due to this rotation of the stomach, that means longitudinal rotation as well as the antero-posterior rotation, as a result of this rotation, the ventral mesogastrium somewhat pulls towards the right side. As this process continues in the fifth week of development, the spleen primordium appears as a mesodermal proliferation between the two leaves of the dorsal mesogastrium. As the next step, what happens is the spleen primordium. This is the spleen primordium, and this spleen primordium appears during fifth week of development in the dorsal mesogastrium, dividing the dorsal mesogastrium into two parts. You can see the dorsal mesogastrium has divided into two parts by this splenic primordium. Splenic primordium appears during the 5th week of the development. And you can see the ventral mesogastrium also there. You can see the liver bud appears in the ventral mesogastrium, dividing it into two as the falciform ligament and lesser omentum. I explained about this in my previous video about the esophagus. Here, once this dorsal mesogastrium is divided into two parts, this part, that means the spleen attached to the posterior body wall, the part, the mesenteric part which attached the spleen to the posterior body wall is called as lienorenal ligament. Lienorenal ligament means, lino means spleen, renal means kidney. Kidney is a retroperitoneal organ. Actually, this attachment goes anterior to the kidney. So the name given is lienorenal ligament. In between the stomach and the spleen, the part of dorsal mesogastrium is called as gastrolenal ligament. Gastrolenal ligament. Once you know the development of these mesenteries and ligaments, it is easy to remember your anatomy as well. That's why I am explaining. In this diagram, you can see this is the liver and stomach, spleen, and you can see the green color one. This one is the pancreatic bud. This pancreatic bud also initially develops in the dorsal mesogastrium, but here in this diagram you can see it is not a intraperitoneal organ. It has goes and fixed to the posterior body wall. These are two kidneys. Here also you can see two kidneys. Here you can see only the tail portion. Only the tail portion of pancreas is inside this dorsal mesogastrium. Rest of the pancreas is in the posterior body wall and it is a retroperitoneal organ. You can see spleen is completely intraperitoneal organ. Stomach is also completely intraperitoneal. Liver is also completely intraperitoneal organ. Due to this development of the pancreas, we call this as secondarily peritoneal organ, secondary retroperitoneal organ, because it initially develops in the inside the dorsal mesogastrium. That means it is initially intraperitoneal and later it becomes retroperitoneal. That's why it is called as secondarily retroperitoneal organ. As a result of rotation of the stomach about it in a anteroposterior axis, the dorsal mesogastrium bulged down. This dorsal mesogastrium bulged down and continues to grow down and forms a double layered sac. And this double layered sac is called as the greater omentum. You can see the greater omentum here, and it is a double layered sac, and actually this extending over the transverse colon, this greater omentum extending over the transverse colon and small intestinal lobes like a apron. This is like a apron, and later what happens is this double layer fuse to form single sheet hanging from the greater curvature of the stomach. Then the posterior layer of the greater omentum also fuse with the mesentery of the transverse colon. I think this diagram is more clear for you about the greater omentum. Here you can see the greater omentum grows downwards as double layered fold. Here you can see it goes as double layers, and it later become a single layer by fusion. And you can see here the transverse colon and it extending over the transverse colon and also the small intestinal loops. So it acts as a protection for these bowel loops. In this diagram also you can see the stomach. Here is the lesser omentum and the great omentum. Then you can see the pancreas, duodenum, transverse colon and its mesentery, small intestinal loops and its mesentery. Here you can see the fusion of the great omentum, and here all together they fused. Here this is the transverse colon, this is the duodenum again, and this is the pancreas. Here you can see the space, omental bursa, also called as lesser sac. So that's all about the development of the stomach and its attached mesenteries. Thank you for watching.